Disclaimer.
The thoughts and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily the views of Tash, Becky, or Be Your Best You podcast.
Hey there, lovely people. Welcome to Be Your Best You with Tash and Becky, your go-to hangout for all things spiritual, subconscious, and downright magical. We're here to sprinkle a little mystical wisdom into your everyday life and help you level up your reality.
Picture this as your cosmic coffee date, where we chat about the unseen world, blend in some psychology vibes, and stir up the subconscious magic. Get ready to be the queen of your own reality, live a life that lights you up, and have a blast doing it.
So grab your latte or your tea and let's dive into another episode of Be Your Best You, where the mystical meets the mundane and your best life awaits.
Cheers to creating magic together.
Let's do this.
Hey guys, can we ask you a favour?
Can we ask, if you haven't already, please make sure that you're following us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you can get updated with all the latest episodes every week when they come out. You never know, it might just be the thing that you need to hear at that time. Also, don't forget you can watch us on YouTube, so make sure you head over there and subscribe to us there.
And share with all your friends.
Thanks, guys. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Be Your Best You with Tash.
And Becky, the guest edition.
We have an episode for you today. We are talking to Zach Tidwell, and he has an inspirational story, but the lessons he brought out of it are just, well, we hope that they're an inspiration for you all and will help you realize that there's always hope and you can do anything you want to do, no matter how hard it may seem or no matter how deep in the hole you find yourself. There's always light and there's always hope.
Yeah. And I don't think I can really say any more than that because we are just still in awe of Zach. And I think Tash just summed it all up there. Take a listen. You're going to absolutely love him because we do.
Enjoy. Today, we have on the show Zach Tidwell. Zach, so nice to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. You guys sound so happy. It's so inviting.
It can be irritating.
Yeah.
So, Zach, we are really excited to share your story with our audience, and we know it's a long one, but it's really relevant. So we'd love to dive into it. If you could just tell us a little bit about your story, like start from the beginning, who you are, and kind of how you got there. Over to you.
Yeah. So to put things into context first, I guess this will probably help keep people with an idea of maybe where I'm going. So I'm 29 years old now. 6.5 years ago, I shot myself in the face, and that left me completely blind and deaf in 1 year. That was about 9 months after I got out of the Marines. I'm not a combat vet. I was just in a bad spot from personal circumstances, traumatic brain injury, and no real healthy coping skills. But so now I'm totally deaf and blind in 1 year, but I do a lot of really, really cool things today. I'm an award-winning software developer. I ski and rock climb and whitewater kayak and surf and compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu against people without disabilities and speak. And I've got a book on the way. And so that's where I guess where I'll go. But that all really started. So I shot myself on March 31st of 2019. At about a year and a half before that, while I was on my second deployment in the Marines, I found out that my wife was cheating on me, and I found out from the other guy's wife. So it was it was a very, very fun dynamic, but I came back from that deployment in November of 2017, tried to make things work with her, and it didn't. So I filed for divorce and was not what anyone would call a happy camper, but I was dealing with it, and I was keeping myself very busy to do that, and really threw myself into the gym more than I ever had, running more than I ever had, and also taking my dirt bike out to the racetrack on the weekends. And I was a machine gunner, so life in the infantry is extremely busy and taxing anyways, but I just kind of turned the dial up and during my off time if we weren't out in the field and stuff. So in March of 2018, a year before I shot myself, I was in a motorcycle accident out at a racetrack, and it changed everything for me. Sorry, my computer started talking. I was trying to make sure I was still in here, but I went from dealing with it to just all of a sudden I was struggling. I'd started dealing with depression for the first time in my life and started having trouble sleeping. I could not escape my thoughts around everything that went wrong with my wife. And I found that what did help me go to sleep was a couple beverages before bed. So that quickly became kind of a ritual for me and continued through August of that year. I was honorably discharged. I came home to Colorado, started going to college and working full time. I was trying to become an ER nurse and just kept getting into a worse and worse place. And that continued all the way through March of 2019, where I just finally had enough. So it was definitely compounding from the drinking. I didn't realize this at the time. I've only realized this in looking back in the years since. I was definitely a functional alcoholic by the time that I shot myself. There was, again, I was getting straight A's. I was killing it at work and doing everything that I could to keep up appearances that I was doing all right. So going so far as to pretend that I was doing the things that I loved, that I was no longer getting enjoyment out of, which including the dirt bike or going snowboarding. Like those were always my big things. And just to try and force myself out of the house, because the only things that I was actually showing up for was the gym, work, and school. I would try and force myself to go snowboarding or take my bike to the racetrack, load all my gear up, drive a couple hours to get there, and still not want to be there. And so I'd just sit in my truck for a couple hours before I drove home so that it looked like I went and did those things. So by the time that March of 2019 rolled around, on March 27th, I was stone cold sober and decided I was going to kill myself. On March 30th, my parents visited me and were standing in the very same room in which I had just decided that I was going to kill myself a couple days beforehand. Like I had held my gun to my head that night just to it was an idea. And then once I held it to my head, I knew okay, I have an escape from this. And so I didn't say anything to them on March 30th when they were there. And the same thing happened on March 31st. I was recording a suicide video to my family, and my roommate came home early from work and interrupted me recording that. And I paused the video because I was in my room. I paused the video, went out and talked to him like nothing was wrong, saw how his day was, and went back in my room and shot myself. So it was, it was the combination of not talking about it, drinking, kind of fueling the fire, and I did everything that I could to not let someone know that I was struggling because I thought that was weak. I thought speaking up was weak. I thought that what I was going through was also normal. For somehow I didn't really appreciate the impact of the motorcycle accident. I was just this is what happens when you're 22 and get divorced because your wife is cheating on you. This is normal, and it was not normal. So when they took me off of life support, I was completely blind and deaf in one ear. Like I said, I shot myself in between the eyes right here. So I don't know if you can see how my nose is ridged, but this whole area, my forehead, my right eye socket, and my sinuses are all a titanium plate now because all that was gone. So, but when I woke up, I was so out of it from the head injury and probably all the medications that I was on for them to have me under while I was on life support that I didn't even understand that I was blind. It was weird. I could have a conversation, but I was seeing these very vivid hallucinations, and it looked like I was in other places, and just nonsensical places, but it didn't click for me. So, but when that finally kind of cleared and we got definitive news that I was going to be completely blind for the rest of my life, because for a while they were telling me I was going to get sight back in my left eye once they reconstructed my face. Then my parents and I had a real, very honest conversation of just, what is life going to look like moving forward? And my mom, am I okay to swear on here?
Yes.
Okay. my mom was like, being blind's not that bad. You could get a guide dog. I've always been a huge dog person. And so I was like, all right, yeah, I'm going to get a guide dog. And my dad's like, maybe you could be a therapist. You could use this and you could help somebody. And I don't know what it was about that, but it made me I had never met a blind person before until myself. So but the one experience that I had with blindness was in the chow halls, which are like the cafeterias on my base on Camp Pendleton in California. There was little tiny fine print on the salt and pepper shakers that said made proudly by the blind and visually impaired. And so when my dad said that, I was like, I'm not making fucking salt and pepper shakers. And they were like, what are you talking about? So I had to explain that, give him the backstory, and obviously I was still pretty concussed when we had that conversation, but it totally, that is ridiculous, but it did definitely kind of capture where my mind was at. Like I didn't want to become a victim to my circumstances, especially because I was the only reason that I got there. Like it wasn't some accident. I didn't get hit by a drunk driver. It was my fault that I wound up there. And 8.5 months after I shot myself, I was snowboarding again. A month after that, I was back in college. And 6 months after that, I was back out on my own. And that's when I was in the hospital, I had to relearn how to do everything from brushing my teeth and feeding myself to walking. And but that the fucking salt and pepper shakers, like it was I was on a mission. I wanted my independence back. And so I got it. That kind of, when I got back out on my own, that was the middle of 2020, and I did all right for a while. And then at the end of that year, rolling into the first several months of 2021, I went through the worst depression that I've ever been through in my life. And I say that because I was sober through it. And so I actually had to sit with it.
Yeah.
But it was just, everything had slowed down so much for me. I was back out on my own. I was in a city where I didn't know anyone. It was COVID, so everything was shut down. All my classes were online, and like my whole day outside of doing homework for school was practicing being blind. Like I would work out, and then it was, okay, I'm going to burn my meals today while I'm trying to cook, and I'm going to make them, and it's going to take me forever to clean up my kitchen because I can't see what the fuck I'm doing. And it just kind of set in where I was like, okay, this kind of sucks, but like, this is hard. And I struggled with that. And it was not rational, the place that I got to, but depression's not rational. And so I reached the point where I had these overwhelming feelings that I did not want to be alive, but I knew where that led, and I wasn't going to do that to myself or to my family again. And I was terrified to speak up because I thought that would mean I was going to get I thought someone would call the cops on me, and I'd get locked away in a psych ward somewhere until someone else decided, like, yeah, now it's okay for him to come out.
Yeah.
But I knew that if I didn't say something, I was going to do something crazy again. And so at that point, I was talking to my psychologist once a week, just doing normal therapy stuff. But I admitted to her the place that I was in, and I told her, I realized this does not make sense, but this is how I feel, and I'm not going to act on it. But I need your help. And she didn't call the cops on me. She was just there for me. And it went from talking every week to every day. And sometimes it was multiple times a day because it was that bad. Like it was, I needed it. I needed some lifeline to kind of keep and some clarity to help string me along. And it worked. And again, that was the first time that I've ever dealt with my depression. And so that showed me that I could get through it, and that it wasn't, because suicide is a problem of despair. With everything that's going on in someone's life, for them to get to that point, there's despair both in their life circumstances and whatever else is going on, but then specifically in the fact that seems inescapable. That is what drives people over the edge. You think there's no way out. You're so blinded by that pain that you can't see a way forward. And so that was a huge lesson for me, that there was a way forward. So I really think that it's the reason that I'm still alive today, because I've been through more nasty things since. So that was early 2021. Later that year, my college stopped making my course content accessible to me. Like up until that point, they'd converted all of my materials into formats that worked with my screen reading software, like I used to join this meeting, even though I can't see what I'm doing. But that's because I was taking all my English classes. I specifically tried to get all those out of the way before I moved into any math or sciences, because those are notoriously rough for blind people. And I'm also self-aware enough to realize that I'm a Marine, so math is not my strong suit anyways. So we, they stopped making my course content accessible and assigned someone to be my eyeballs instead. And that pissed me off because I was fully independent at that point, and I was doing all of those things that I mentioned. I was skiing, rock climbing, whitewater kayaking, and now competing in Brazilian jiu-jitsu against people without disabilities. But you could sit this freaking math homework in front of me, and all of a sudden I'm beholden to someone else to do things for me, and it pissed me off. So the night of the first exam, I ordered some alcohol to blow off some steam, just again, not realizing that I was an alcoholic before, and that unleashed, you hear alcoholics talk about this, where if you start drinking again, it will pick up where you left off and be worse. And that was so true. Like, it unlocked, there was no more functional of it. All of a sudden, I was a mess. So that started 2.5 years of alcoholism. But at that same time, because I actually ended up in the psych ward one night within a couple of weeks. I don't remember the exact timeline, but it was within a couple of weeks of picking up the bottle. I wound up in a psych ward, self-admitting to the psych ward because I was hammered, and in that dark place because of the alcohol was worried that something bad was going to happen. I came out of that and I started researching what caused these accessibility issues. How come I could do the English homework, but not the math homework? How come I could pay my mortgage, but not my electric bill or whatever else? So many things are inaccessible, but there are things for me that I can use. And I found out that it all came down to the code running behind the scenes of every app or website that I was accessing, that developers could take specific steps to make things accessible, not just for blind people, for other access technologies too, like voice control software and things like that. So I decided to drop out of college and become part of the solution, because most software out there is not accessible. So that was October of 2021 when I started teaching myself. Alcoholism kept getting worse and worse. And by the time, I tried AA, that didn't work because I wasn't holding myself accountable, and I would hide from my sponsors when I would relapse, which was like every week. So, and then I tried outpatient rehab. By the end of that, because it was virtual, because it was over COVID. So by the end of that, I would have a liquor bottle sitting out of view of the camera and be like, all right, we're going to take 5 minutes. We're going to roll into the next class. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And I'd go to the bathroom, come back and stand off to the side of the computer and take a pull off the bottle by the end of those 3 weeks. And finally went to an inpatient rehab program in 2022. And right before I did, we found out that my mom has a degenerative neurological disease called Huntington's disease.
Yeah. Wow.
The fun part with that is that the end stage of that disease, and it will happen, it starts as a movement disorder and behavioral issues, then speech, and eventually you basically become a vegetable. The fun part with that is that there's a 50-50 chance of passing that down to your children. So I got tested before I went to rehab, and then while I was there, I found out that I have it too. And so it's incurable. It's not really treatable. They can treat the movements, but it doesn't treat the disease progression. Like, it just lessens the involuntary movements and stuff as you your brain tissue continues to die. And so I came back, obviously drinking. I had another excuse to drink, so it just got worse. And at its worst, I was drinking for 2 or 3 days straight, and just being blacked out for those 2 or 3 days, recovering for 2 or 3 days, and then doing it all over again. But throughout that whole time, rolling all the way through to the 4th of July in 2023, anytime I was coherent enough to do so, I was still teaching myself how to code and coding. So I had actually started my first business and released my first piece of software on the 4th of July in 2023. It was a word puzzle game called Xanagrams, and it looked and functioned normally for people without disabilities. But the cool thing was it was also accessible to virtually every physical disability. So if someone was legally blind, it does all this automatically. So it infers from different device settings, like the different adaptations that need to be made. And so if someone was legally blind, it would magnify and increase text sizes and maybe use high contrast colors and decrease the amount of animations on screen so that it's easier to follow with your decreased vision. If you're totally blind like me, a screen reader could use it. And if you're totally blind and totally deaf, you could use it with electronic braille displays. So you could actually read this iPhone app, this word puzzle game on your through braille. And if you had no arms or you were paralyzed, you could use it with your voice. And I started getting these emails from people of like, just, hearing the impact that it was having on them. And I realized that sounds so simple. It was just a word puzzle game. But you have to think back to what I said about most software being inaccessible. Like when you have a disability like this, you have to jump through hoops a lot of the day, every day. Like that's just part of life. And so these people were all of a sudden having something where they didn't have to jump through hoops and that they could enjoy with their friends and family who didn't have disabilities. And it might be, if you have something, if you might have medical appointments all day, and like this is just a little escape while you need someone to drive you because you're paralyzed and you can't drive. Your whole day is getting to and from the hospital. And you have something stupid to just take your mind off of it. And it just, but that hearing back from those people started having an impact on me where I was like, okay, I did something that's helping people. And I strung together. I went from not being able to make it more than 3 days sober to I got a month of sobriety and then I fell off the wagon. And then I got 2.5 months of sobriety and then I fell off the wagon. I had my last drink on December 5th of 2023. At the end of that year, that game also won 2 Game of the Year awards specifically for the accessibility side of things. And it was just like, okay, I've come full circle. And I knew not on December 5th because I was drunk December 5th, but in the days following that, like I could feel as I did start to accrue some sobriety, it felt different. Like I think I'd found my purpose and had my identity back again because I did. I lost all of that after I shot myself. And I felt like it was going to stick. So I started writing a memoir in January of 2024. I also started a new business and have been working on another software project since March of 2024 that will take all of the things that I learned in making that first app and apply it into a much wider reaching, hopefully more impactful piece of software. Because that was a proof of concept for me to make sure that I could do everything. I did every line of code in that app, including all the visuals. I made it and I wanted to make sure that I could handle all that being completely blind without so that I could start a business without funding and at least get to market without needing to hire people.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing all that. I've got my own podcast now where I try and have some of these deeper conversations with people and just kind of started doing a lot of speaking recently. And I'm trying to continue just rolling this momentum forward into helping other people as much as I can. Cause I really sharing this stuff, whether it's the alcoholism, whether it's the suicide and depression, like on the alcoholism side, that helps give people hope. On the depression side and the suicide side, that helps walk people off the ledge if they're at that point. Cause it happens almost every time that I speak, if not every time. Someone will come up to me after or reach out to me after and like what I said is what they needed to hear to realize like, oh, I'm not in a good spot. I'm on the cusp of something here. I need to go get help. Like it just, there's something about that format. And then obviously if no one else is going to make the accessible stuff that I want to make, someone has to, and I'm trying to put it out there. So it's been really neat. I'm in a really, really good place right now with a lot of, I'm super stressed out right now because I've got a bunch of stuff I'm working on at once, but like, it's all good stress, right? It is.
Yeah.
And so it's been, December will be 2 years sober and
Oh, well, congratulations.
just
Well,
cruising along. Yeah.
Amazing. Gosh, I'm Zach. I'm so in awe of you. I don't know how to
I know.
Oh my God, barely holding it together here.
I've got a million things like going on in my mind, and first of all, I just think I just want to say, yeah, you're an inspiration.
Oh.
It's incredible your strength, and you're so
Yeah.
young as well. You were so young when all this happened. You're still so young now, aren't you? And it's just
And I was thinking when you were talking, Zach, I was thinking, like how amazing your parents sound. When you were in the hospital and you were going through all of that, I was just like, that got me.
Yeah. And
Just how they spoke to you,
The
and how
guide
they,
dog,
with the guide dog, and that positive. It could have gone so differently, couldn't it?
Yeah, if they weren't there, especially, I mean, they were at the hospital with me every day. And I know early on it was 24/7. Like while I was out, while I was on life support, they were definitely there the whole time. And even early on, because again, for a while, I couldn't sit up in bed. Like it was like in those times, they were there 24/7. It was, and I've got 2 younger sisters too. So I'm 29. I have a sister that's, this was 6.5 years ago. So I had a 12 and 1-2-year-old sister at the time when I shot myself. So
Oh.
like they're carting my sisters around, trying to keep them there, but like they're riding that balance of keeping them with people so that they're not stuck at the hospital all the time. And like that's even for those first until I moved out back on my own. Like I was living with my parents, and they were kind of like my safety net, even as I was not just in the means of like I had a place to go, but as I was practicing my blindness skills, like because there was a month before I got sent to blind rehab, and then I got sent to blind rehab for 2.5 months, and I came home and knew like the basics, but I was not anywhere near self-sufficient. I cook meals and then like have my mom check them before I ate them so I didn't make myself sick, or go try and figure out how to walk around my parents' neighborhood and get lost. And so I'd FaceTime my parents or call them and be like, hey, I know I'm generally in this area. Can you come find me? Kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
Aw.
yeah, a lot of people don't have that. I'm very, very fortunate.
Yeah.
And
Did that make you feel, different? Did you realize how much people loved you then? Did you not realize that before? Or, what I'm trying to say?
yeah,
A
I don't,
deeper sense of love.
it's interesting because I don't remember having that thought of like no one loved me before, but there was with that. I mean, it was obviously my wife had cheated on me, so I didn't have her anymore. And then my parents had actually kicked me out of their house after I got home from the Marines in August of 2018. They said, hey, if you're going to school and stuff, like you can live here rent free. Like you're doing what you need to do. We're gonna try and help you out. But they kicked me out in January of 2019 because again, with the drinking, like it wasn't good. And actually it happened like our family's big on like we've always had a good family dynamic of like celebrating, people's birthdays and stuff like that. And my middle sister it's her birthday is in January, and we were all supposed to go out to breakfast for her birthday. She wanted to go to this crazy pancake place. And so we were all supposed to be ready to go at the same time, and I wasn't ready. So my parents came down to like, oh, maybe overslept or maybe just running a little late. And I was passed out on the floor with a bottle of liquor next to me. And so, yeah, they had kicked me out like shortly before I shot myself. And so I'm sure there probably was some of that before, or at least I felt like a fuck up. I know I felt like a fuck up with that end of it. So yeah, it was just, I mean, that support, even had it been a little later, like during COVID, they probably wouldn't have let my family back there. And I don't know what that would have done. What does that do to your psyche when you have a bullet hole in your forehead? Like I was in the hospital for 51 days. I would have gone crazy.
Yeah. Can I ask, Zach, because, when you said that you shot yourself in between your eyes, I'm just thinking, how did you survive that? Did the doctors think that it was crazy that you survived? It was, it just seems like, how do you survive from that?
I tried asking them while I was in the hospital, and I think I got the impression that they took it as if I was asking from the perspective of, hey, if I did this again, how would it go, right? Kind of thing. So my, knowing and I'm not like some super knowledgeable person on guns, but grew up around guns. I did guns for 4 years. Like I have an understanding of ballistics and ammunition. Think what saved me. So this was my concealed carry firearm, and in my obviously not clear-minded state, I kept my ammunition that I typically carried in there. So I used hollow point rounds instead of the normal ball rounds. So it's like they're meant to break up. Like they're meant to break up inside of a body cavity and basically spread apart and cause a bunch of havoc. Whereas a normal round is a big slug and it'll hit and kind of mushroom and just continue pushing through. And I think what saved me was the fact that it was hollow points, because anatomically your sinus structure is actually like those cavities are actually a pretty big mass of bone, and there's different chambers in there. And so my sinuses were pretty much gone. And I think that's what deflected the round, because it rode around the inside of my skull. That's why I'm deaf in my right ears, because there's bullet fragments in my inner ear on that side of my skull. And there's some back by my right carotid artery somewhere. But I think that's probably what did it, was the combination of that much bone and the hollow points.
So can I ask you then, obviously, like we explained, our what we talk about on the show and some of the things that we talk about, I can't help but ask, like, is there a part of you that questioned why did I survive that? How did I survive that? Am I meant to be here? You know, do you have any of those kind of thoughts, or did you afterwards?
I kind of struggle with that from the perspective of I've had a lot of people say that to me from, oh, you're obviously here for a reason.
Mm.
You know, and it's you're here for a reason. You survive to help other people, whatever.
Mm.
I struggle with that from the sense of like I'm not anything special. So I don't get why that would be me over a kid with blood cancer and I think these are it's the common narrative that people who aren't so spiritual kind of struggle with of,
Mm.
okay, if that exists, how come, if God is real, how come there's this much pain or whatever? And
Yeah.
not necessarily on that end of that. I like the idea that there's like the concept of the universe being God or something. I just don't believe necessarily in a man in the clouds and some sweet robes
Yeah,
and sandals.
absolutely.
But
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. It's weird because I have that where I like to believe that, but I don't believe that it would be on the individual level of like, that's why I'm still here, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I love having these conversations with people, like, with the differing views as well, because I just think it's really interesting, to see you've had such a close brush with death, and it's just interesting how people take different things from it. And but what I heard you say later on, which I also find quite interesting, is that it was when you felt like you had a purpose that you were then able to move forward out of the drinking habit, and you felt good and you felt like you hopeful and you could move on, which is interesting. So could you just tell us a little bit more about like the kind of the purpose that for you?
Yeah, so the the Marine Corps itself is kind of a cult of personality. Like you hear that. That's the Marine Corps. Marines think we're the best of, obviously not over something like the SEALs or MARSOC or not Rangers, but like the Rangers and Green Berets. Like we know our place in that hierarchy, but when you're comparing the branches, like we're like, okay, if you're not a Marine, you're not shit kind of thing. And that's like, it's ingrained in you. Like that is something very intentional that they do. But like, that was my personality was, not only am I a Marine, but I'm a grunt. I'm an infantryman. And then I got out of the Marines, and yes, the adage is once a Marine, always a Marine, but like that's not what I was doing. But I wanted to become an ER nurse, and I was really enjoying my work I was a nurse's aide working, basically doing all the crappy work for the nurses while I was going to school. But I enjoyed that. And so I had that purpose, and that's what I was going to do. And then all of a sudden, after I shot myself, not only could I not do anything for myself, but when I looked at going back into college, I couldn't find a proof of a blind nurse anywhere. And it makes sense. Like you can't do that without sight. It is a visual job. That would be like asking to be a driver and being blind. Like it doesn't make sense. So, and I struggled with that. Even when I went back to college, I did start going for clinical psychology, but that was because that was just something that I thought would be fitting, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do something. Again, it is that I'm not going to sit here and just waste away kind of thing. So I floundered with that, where I was just kind of going through. Yes, it was in the effort of pursuing a larger goal, but it wasn't what I would really wanted to do necessarily. I wanted to help people. And so when I wound up finding that in a really abstract place, almost like it clicked, because I was like, okay, this is, I can do this every day. And I want to do this all day, every day. Like it's weird. It's just, it starts to give that feedback loop where it feels like you're doing something outside of yourself, I think which I don't know how much of that is a personality thing. Obviously, purpose is a huge thing for people. And for me, like real estate, if you analyze the things that I've been into, it's always been service in some capacity. And so for whatever reason, it has scratched that itch for me. And it just, I'm such a nerd about it now. Like but I love it. It's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, like you can clearly see, like with the things that you've wanted to do, you are definitely someone who wants to help people and care about people, and it's. I've heard this story so many times, where you think helping people looks like, the very stereotypical kind of things. And then there's just so many ways that it's possible to help people. And it's funny how they come about. But, something that I see come up in my work all the time is around this kind of this purpose thing. And I truly think that, I know you said, is it a personality thing? Or I think it's just a human thing. I think that we all have come in, or I believe that we've all come here with a purpose, and that's like whether we know it or not, and I think we all do subconsciously, and this is what we're driven by. We want to fulfill that purpose. And I think a lot of our problems and our like sadness or stresses or all the things that happen to us that are difficult is because we aren't aligned with that purpose. We haven't figured it out. We don't know kind of what it is. We don't understand that's what we're looking for. I think there's so many different things, but what I see is that when we get down to it, people want that to come through, and it's working on all of those beliefs and fears and issues that we have that are preventing us from going out and doing it or seeing it or recognizing it. And once you've figured out what your purpose is, like you've discovered, Zach, it's great. It feels good because you're doing what you came here to do. And sometimes we have to go through some horrible things to get there. And for you, I mean, you're just like a really, really extreme case of what you've gone through to get to where you are now. But it's just, I mean, I just hope everyone listening can think, look what Zach's done. If he can do it, I can do it.
I'd never thought, like you made a good point of, it's until we find that we are doing that is where a lot of this unruliness and the unhappiness kind of comes from. I've never thought about it like that. I've recognized that obviously in my path because I know my path, but like you don't think about that from the larger whole of people. I do. Yeah, I've thought about it from, yes, these people don't feel validated or rewarded by what they're doing. If you're going and selling pens to freaking corporate companies or something, like that has to just be horrible work. And I've always thought that, maybe that's where some of these uglier sides of things start to rear their head because you're starting to try and make up for the deficit somewhere else in life. But the way you said it makes so much more sense. Like, it's just, I think it's weird, and it's hard because it sounds woo woo almost when you talk about it. But like when you, I try and like stay away from saying certain things. So I'm like, okay, I know this. If you're just passing through and hear this, you're gonna be like, oh, he lost me, but it is. I think there's a lot to that. Like if you can look past the guru sounding kind of shit. But, yeah.
I think I mean, I love this conversation because this is what this is my mission and my purpose in life is to bring, because I don't know whether you know, so I'm a hypnotherapist and I work with the subconscious mind, so that's what I do. But like what I really want to do is from my work with the subconscious mind, which is very like the psychology side of things, and so science based, and I went to med school, I was going to be a doctor, so I was very much of that left brain. I need the science. I don't believe in the woo woo. I don't want to hear it. No thanks. And then I had like a few big things happen in my life. It's completely switched my perspective. And so now I like to kind of bring that woo woo stuff, which I'm now interested in, but ground it in the subconscious psychology kind of scientific stuff, because they're both one and the same. And I think that when you can see it from both sides, both perspectives, it really helps certain things to make sense. So the woo-woo can really make sense of the very practical stuff, like I like having a goal and I feel like a purpose is good. But when you can think of it from the bigger kind of woo-woo perspective, it makes it feel more real. And like so many people want to think it, or like you just said, oh, actually, that makes sense when you say it like that. But we're so scared to talk about woo woo stuff or even think about woo woo stuff for ourselves because, like, oh, I can't go there. I'm going to be nuts. I'm going to be one of those crazies.
I think.
Yeah, God, no.
I think some of that is the way you communicate it, though. Like the way you communicate it, I think the apprehension comes from because there's so many charlatans out there that will.
Yeah.
I talked with a guy who, again, I go back to not having. I realize I don't have the answers for things. I found a guy who claims he's a prophet and he has all these healing powers. I don't know that, going into it, like, I don't necessarily believe this, but I'm also not writing off the fact that there could be real people like this out there. So I'll talk to him. I think he was total bullshit artist, but like that's hearing someone like him talk about it, like the way he communicated it, it's the whole time he's talking, you're like, this dude's a liar. He's just making stuff up. But the way you communicate it, again, it's articulate and it is not saying that you have the answers in some unrelatable way. There's no hand waving. Like, yes, it might be a woo-woo theme, but like the way you're very direct in attaching and making the connections between the things there. And I think that's the big difference but I think like as a society, I think that's where me personally, that's where that apprehension comes from is like, okay, there's so many bullshitters.
Oh yeah. It's so true. And I just like I said, I like to say I'm a healthy skeptic. So I'm always looking for, like, hang on a minute, is this crazy? Is this nonsense? But like the facts don't lie. So when you see something happen over and over and over again, you're like, there's something in this, like that just makes sense, and I see that like working with people and their subconscious and kind of doing the more woo-woo stuff. I'm like, there's something to this. And the most important thing, which I always say, is that without fail, for myself and for all my clients and my friends and the people around me, when we've done these things, when we've seen it from this kind of perspective, it's always made things better. It's made people's lives better. It's made them happier. It's made great things like happen for them. And I'm like, well, I don't care whether it's real or not. I'm going to take that every day rather than just thinking that we're kind of, we're here, we're floating around on this big bit of rock in space and then we're going to be gone. Yeah, I'd rather that.
Yeah, there's so much wonder in the world with that side. And it's just like, how can you not be in awe of it a little bit? So that's another, when you hear people being dismissive of other things, and I feel like sometimes there's a correlation to that. It's like, all right, what's your view on the bigger picture here? Just not even in terms of if there's a God, but like, okay, if we're in what is an infinite universe, like all the possibilities, what are your thoughts? Oh, well, there's no way there's other living life out there anywhere. Like stuff like, and I like, okay, that might be where some of this closed offedness is coming from, kind of thing. It's just, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's lovely to have like an open mind, and I've found the more open my mind is, the more magic and wonder can come in, and it surprises you, but then it doesn't surprise you in the end because it becomes everyday life.
You can't go back. Once you've opened your mind to it, you can't go back.
And there was another thing I wanted to ask you, because this salt and pepper shaker. Now, when I heard you say that again, like that's one of those things that I hear and I'm like, I've heard that before. Yeah. So not with the salt and pepper, but
I was like, where the fuck did you hear that?
I haven't. It's not the salt and pepper, but it's like, it's what it seemed to me, correct me if I'm wrong, was like that was quite a defining moment for you. I know you were kind of maybe still concussed or whatever, but that was like that salt and pepper shaker popped into your mind and you were like, no, I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to let this stop me. Is that right? Yeah. Was it quite a defining moment for you?
Yeah. I mean, I've never wanted something where I feel like I'm just punching the clock. And when I thought that is, okay, this is what blind people do, is you sit on a factory line and mold these salt and pepper shakers. Like, that sounds miserable. I will not do that. I want something with a purpose. And again, everything that I had done up to that point was along that same vein. So obviously that's something that I personally need, but we've already touched on. I really do think a lot of people are missing the purpose. And so, yeah, it was I'm going to find something that is still purposeful. And I wanted to turn this specifically into something that helped other people because it's been such a major change for me in all aspects. And again, because it was my own fault. I think, and I don't remember having that thought consciously, but as much as I've talked about this over the last couple of years, because I really, I guess early on, I couldn't even talk about stuff with my ex-wife without, I would get sweaty and angry. And then I definitely couldn't talk about my suicide attempt. I was ashamed of it. But when I did start, I was very intentional with trying to open up about it. And like once I did, I started like in the past couple of years, it has been, I've noticed it driving changes in other areas. Like it's just, I think it's important.
Yeah. I think, from listening to your story as well, a lot of it was that you couldn't open up, like you couldn't ask for help. And if what this has done really has taught you to open up, that it's safe to open up, that you need to open up. And now in you opening up and being vulnerable and doing that thing that you couldn't do, which led you to shooting yourself, you're now actually helping other people by doing that. And I just think it's like it's incredible. The very thing that you couldn't do, you have now done it, and you are helping other people from doing it. And that must feel, that's great for you, isn't it? Because let me ask you, how do you feel now that you are obviously a lot more open? You asked your psychologist or psychiatrist for help. You actually did the thing that you didn't do the first time. You kind of learned that lesson, didn't you? And how do you feel now that you open yourself up more to help? What does it feel for you? Does it feel good? Does it feel better?
It's been interesting. I really think, because earlier this year, I went through a couple months. It was the worst depression that I've had since 2021. It wasn't as bad. Also interesting, suicide was never crossed my mind and is not an option in my mind, kind of like drinking's not now. I think just being on the other side of it and having been through things, without the crutch, and having been through it and seeing that there is a way out, like I think that has changed my perspective, which is interesting because before my suicide attempt, like I always held very staunch views on it as this selfish, cowardly act. It's easy to say that stuff when you haven't been through it, but I think coming on the other side of it now, it's being very grateful for when I'm not in a bad place, because it sucks, obviously. It's not, and just appreciating when I am, but I just feel very mentally resilient in the sense of like, I've been through worse. Like when new stuff comes up, I'm like, I've been through worse, or, I have the skills. And I didn't drink for those several months that I struggled earlier this year. And I've also been off of my antidepressants since late last year. Like it's interesting. I had actually stopped them several months before I got into that low point in late 2020, rolling into 2021. And then it was the same thing here where 4, 5, 6 months later, after getting off of them, I started to struggle again. And I had other weird things where I noticed some changes in me after getting off of them. So I don't know if that's like a refractory period kind of depression that comes after it. But knowing now that I can, there's no medications, I'm doing all the things right. Even when I do, and I can't help that I go through a low point, knowing that I can come on the other side of it and communicate that to other people, because I think that is what will save a lot of lives. It just feels empowering. If that, it's again, there's a positive to all of this, right? It is not, it is not just, okay, I fucked my life up doing this. There is people, I'm like the cancer warning on a box of cigarettes to like, I don't know. So it's been neat.
Yeah.
Well, you've got everything in that story, hasn't he? Like you say, that there's always going to be someone to come up to you after and pick out at least one thing there that they, can draw from.
Yeah. So I suppose, before we kind of wrap it up, how would you've come through something, so like you said that there's been periods of depression, alcoholism, coping with and learning to be blind, everything that comes from a suicide attempt. What would you say was the things that got you through it, that there's something in you that was just saying, oh, keep going? And what I would love everybody to know is that, they all have this ability. Everybody has the strength, the ability in them to do what you've done. They might just not recognize it. And you are a perfect example to other people that it can be done, and you can, because you're no different to them. We're all the same. So what was it that you have done? What's got you through every day when, you know, you've been going through all these hardships that's just said, keep going, you can do this. And not only have you got through it, but you're now thriving, and you're doing jujitsu with people, and you're snowboarding and rock climbing, and that's things that I would never do anyway. So what is it? Can you, I know that's a really big question, that's a really hard question, but is there anything kind of that pops into your mind when I say that, you know, you think other people could benefit from?
You're asking specifically from the mindset side of things?
Yes.
Okay. It's weird. So, and I'm trying to think through a concise answer here, because I don't think I've ever been asked that. I've always been very driven, and that was also drilled into me by my dad. Like very, very driven, very high standards for myself, because he's very driven, had very high standards for himself, and I was always pushed to have high standards, you know, as a byproduct of him having high standards. And, you know, my mom too pushed me in school, but like my dad has been, my dad is he's a machine in a good way. I mean that in a good, like in terms of just like, if there's something, he will get it done. And I think some of it is just that. And again, wanting, you know, the thing that I could come back to is like, I want this to help someone else. I want there to be a positive outcome of this. And it is that might get kind of passed on, like that baton might get passed on to another goal. You know, initially it was independence, and then it was, okay, now I'm back in school, and then it was the coding, and then it was the book. And it's the book and the coding. I'm doing both, and it's just like, I think it's that. It is, I am going to turn this into something that is not negative, and that I'm in a unique position to help other people here. Like, the fact that I retained my brain function after all of that is, even aside from the fact that I survived, like, is freaking nuts. Like, I'm very, very lucky to be here. And I harp on the fact that there is always a way forward. I harp on that. And that is a decision, right? Like, we always have the choice. And I know, had I not shot myself in the face, and I was saying this from the outside looking in, that would probably sound insensitive, but, you know, I had agency in getting myself to the place where I wanted to shoot myself. It was my choice to not speak up. It was my choice to shoot myself. And it was also, I've made a point to focus on the things that I can do and not the things that I can't do. And when I find something that I can't do, I will do everything in my power to make it something that I can do. It is that. It is always, I have a choice. I have a choice to I have a choice to be sober. I have the choice to get through this, whatever this new thing is. Like, it is that. And it is something, I'm getting sweaty talking about it, because I'm like very, like, in a good way, where I'm like, this is, yes. And it is, people need to remember that. And it is, at the end of the day, like, it is, you have a choice. And I realize, whatever situation you're in right now, that can sound very almost unrelatable, because you're like, oh, well, no, it's different for me because of X, Y, and Z. It's not. There are outside variables at play in your situation, but if you bring it down to some level, you have control over some. Yes, you can't choose if you're dealing with depression. You can choose to speak up and to focus on your diet, and to focus on going to the gym and doing everything in your power to help diminish some of the weight of that depression, or whatever aspect there is in your life. On some level, you have control over something.
Thank you.
Honestly. Yeah, of course. Repeating each other. But
thank you, because you've just said what we say all the time. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've said on this podcast, you have a choice. You always have a choice.
Oh, really?
And so it's really interesting, because when I work with my clients, the very first hypnosis, the very first hypnosis that I ever do with every single client, no matter what they've come to work with me on, is all about the fact that I am hammering into their subconscious mind, you have a choice. You always have a choice. You get to choose whether you focus on the good
Yeah.
or the bad. You get to choose whether you feel this or this, or you get to choose. You have a choice. And again, it just goes back to this, stepping out. If you can say that, I hope people can hear that and
Oh my
realize, because
goodness.
it's really
Yeah.
difficult
That's so
when you're in that victim mindset. When someone says, just like you said, it
Yeah.
can sound insensitive when you're in that victim mindset. That can be really offensive when someone
They
says
don't
that.
like it.
No. And I get it. I mean, and honestly, I had it said to me once and I wanted to punch the person in the face.
Yeah.
I'll be quite honest.
It sucks. It sucks.
It does suck.
And
It's self-responsibility. It's
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
personal responsibility, and it's hard, but it's the best thing you can do. And you have
One day it just makes sense, doesn't it?
you've just summed that up perfectly. I honestly,
I
thank
cannot
you.
wait for everybody to hear Zach, and I
Mhm.
cannot wait to play it to my son either, because I just think you're amazing.
And I also realize again, with everything that I just said, I've shot myself. I've gotten myself in alcoholism twice. Like I've been in the victim mindset. Like I'm obviously not perfect, but like these are the lessons that I've learned through, or that is like the takeaway lesson that I really feel like they've been able to take away from this. And it's just, I'm glad you guys are talking about it. And people, again, like usually if you hear something like that and it hurts, that's usually because there's some truth to it. Just the other funny thing at play there. Yeah.
It is that thing that triggers you. It's like your perfect identifier. That's something that I need to look at.
That's what Tash tells me.
Yeah.
What's that triggering in you then, Becky?
And again, I just like our mission here with this podcast is to help empower people to realize that you do have a choice and that you are in control of, yes, you can't control the external circumstances, but you can control yourself, and it's the only thing you can control. And when you can understand that and realize that, then life gets better. It doesn't mean life's easy, and there's still going to be problems, but life gets better and a smoother ride, and you can make things happen for yourself that you wouldn't have been able to ordinarily. But you are just a perfect example of how, even despite all of those things, you still went back on that belief of I have a choice, and that's what got you through. And also, I think I want to highlight as well is that you did have that drive that you wanted to help other people as well. And I think I see that, and I believe that from that kind of more woo-woo perspective, I believe that we're all here because we want to help people. We all want to help people, whatever that looks like. We think like it's because that's why I wanted to be a doctor, because I knew I wanted to help people, but I've ended up doing something completely like the opposite of what I thought, but I'm still helping people. And you can help people by working in a shop if that's what you want to do and that's what you love. You're helping people. I think whenever you can think, how can I help? How can I serve? You're gonna have a much easier time finding your purpose, because I just think it's within us. It's within us to want to help people. And you're, again, a perfect example of when you realized that and when you went forward with that, things got better for you as well, didn't it?
Yeah, and that's an intrinsic thing. Like you said, it could be in any capacity. Obviously, probably people hear me talking about coding as being like something that I find purpose in and how it helps people. They're probably like, yeah, whatever. Like, but for me, that it does it. And it could be your art. It could be whatever, like you said, a shop owner, like it just find that thing that speaks to you. And I know that is a hard thing to do.
Yes.
That is not a simple, straightforward thing, but yeah.
But you just, as long as you can, it's like taking one foot in front of the other and follow. I mean, again, I think that if you follow what lights you up and you follow your joy, which is really hard to do because we're not programmed to do that. It's a whole nother conversation. But if you can follow what lights you up and what brings you joy as much as possible, you're gonna find it easier to find your purpose, because like you did with coding. And again, it just, like you're helping people in so many different ways with opening up and talking about suicide and depression and alcoholism and that side of things. But then look at who else you're helping with the accessibility functions. Who knew that's not something you would have ever done or thought to do if this hadn't happened to you.
Yeah. And I also I'm very fortunate that like this has been something I can do full time. A lot of times, it's maybe your thing that you find that passion in doesn't won't pay the bills or whatever, that's fine. Just it can be volunteering once a month or something. Like it is just, again, it is an intrinsic thing. But you hear people talk about this a lot, people who are in different volunteering roles or different professional capacities where it's like, hey, from the outside in, and again, it sounds almost like corny to say, but I believe most people when they say it. Obviously there's some fake people that you're BSing me right now, but where people say, yes, what I'm doing X and Y, but really I'm getting a lot more out of helping them than they are from me helping them in whatever way. I think that also kind of speaks to when you have found that thing that is your that purpose, where it is like, yes, like with you, no one probably at face value, no one's like, yeah, this hypnotist is getting anything out of this, right? It's a job, but like if you found that is your way to start to shape people's perspectives on things and the way that they think about things and unlock things for them, like there you go, you're getting more out of it than they are. And it's,
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
honestly, it's like there's no selfless good deed.
But no.
Phoebe's right, it's true. Like I can't, like I get so much joy from. I feel like I get so much joy from my job. I can't even tell you. I can't even begin to explain. But
we said that the other day, didn't we? When you found your purpose, how you actually realize when you are also getting something from it. I think we feel like we need to be selfless, don't we, to help others, but it's actually when you are getting just as much, maybe more from it than they are.
And that's good, that's right, like you should be. You should. And I wish for everyone to find their purpose. But I think you made such a good point there, Zach, that it doesn't have to be your career. It doesn't have to be a job, because then, we tend to think that. I always say I'm really fortunate because my career, my job is my purpose. But it doesn't have to be. It can be a hobby, or it can be something you do on the side, the volunteering, but just find it and do it. And you never know where it will go after that anyway. But I think that's so important. It is so important. Zach, thank you so much. Before we round it up, I just also want to say, I can't help it, I have to say it.
What is it?
when you said earlier, I'm not special, but yes, you are special, because, and I feel like I have to say it.
So
you are special, and I'm not just saying you're
Thank
special because of everything you've done and what you've been through. I can't, this is the hypnotherapist in me. I can't, you have to, but if you can believe that you are special, you're no more special than anyone else, but you are special, and your specialness doesn't detract from the kid with the blood cancer. It doesn't. But you are special, and you're here because you chose to be here. You have a purpose here, you're doing it, and remember that you are special all the time, and so is everyone else. But that's good, you just focus on your specialness.
I feel like you just Mr. Miyagi'd me.
She does that a lot.
Like, look over here. Yes, you are special.
I'm just gonna leave you with that one.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was a blast. This was awesome. So
amazing. It's been honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And I know everyone's gonna have
absolutely love you. We love you.
Love your story, and you're just awesome, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much, Zach. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You're so welcome. Right, guys, that's it for another episode. We will be back next time. See you later. Bye.